What happens when a royal guest sits down for what should be a friendly chat and instead faces an all-out attack from a talk show host who clearly has an agenda? In just 27 seconds, one comment from Denise Welch turned a simple interview into the most shocking moment in loose women history. This is the story of how Prince Harry walked onto that stage with nothing but good intentions and walked off after being pushed to his absolute limit. The studio lights were bright as Prince Harry made his way onto the Loose Women set. The audience clapped and cheered as he waved and took his seat on the famous purple sofa. Next to him sat the panel: Denise Welch, Ruth Langsford, Colleen Nolan, and Janet Street Porter. All of them smiling, all of them looking welcoming. But something felt different today. Something felt off. Ruth Langsford started things off with a warm smile. She leaned forward and said, "Prince Harry, thank you so much for joining us today. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here." Harry nodded graciously. "Thank you for having me. I am happy to be here and talk about the work we are doing with mental health charities." The audience clapped again. Everything seemed fine. Everything seemed normal. Ruth continued with her questions, asking about his charity work, his passion for helping young people struggling with mental health, and the initiatives he had been supporting. Harry answered each question thoughtfully, passionately, and with genuine care. The audience listened intently. They were moved by his words. You could feel the warmth in the room. But then Denise Welch spoke up. She shifted in her seat, crossed her arms, and looked at Harry with an expression that was anything but friendly. "Prince Harry," she said, her voice sharp, "I have to say, I find it quite interesting that you are sitting here talking about mental health when you have caused so much pain to your own family." The studio went silent. The audience gasped. Ruth Langsford looked shocked. Colleen Nolan's eyes went wide. Janet Street Porter looked down at her notes, clearly uncomfortable. Harry blinked, taken aback by the sudden shift in tone. He cleared his throat and replied calmly, "I appreciate your question, Denise, but I am here today to talk about the important work being done to support young people who are struggling. That is what I want to focus on." Denise did not back down. She leaned forward, her voice getting louder. "But you cannot just ignore the elephant in the room, can you? You have made accusations. You have aired private family matters. And now you expect everyone to just forget about that and listen to you talk about charity work?" Harry remained calm, though you could see the frustration starting to build in his eyes. "Denise, with all due respect, I am not here to discuss my personal life. I am here to shine a light on an issue that affects millions of people. Can we please keep the focus on that?" Ruth tried to step in. "Denise, maybe we should," she started, but Denise cut her off. "No, Ruth, I think this needs to be said," Denise snapped. She turned back to Harry. "You sit there in your expensive clothes, living your life of luxury, and you have the nerve to lecture the rest of us about mental health? Do you not see how hypocritical that is?" the audience murmured uncomfortably. Colleen Nolan looked at Denise with concern. Janet Street Porter finally spoke up. "Denise, I think that might be a bit harsh," she said quietly. But Denise was not listening. She was on a roll now, her words coming faster and sharper. "You know what I think? I think you use these causes as a way to stay relevant. You talk about mental health, but what about the mental health of your own grandmother? What about the stress you put on her in her final years?" Harry's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the edge of his seat. He took a deep breath, clearly trying to keep his composure. "That is incredibly disrespectful," he said, his voice steady but firm. "You do not know what you are talking about." Denise scoffed. "Oh, I do not know what I am talking about. Everyone knows what happened. Everyone saw how you treated your family. You cannot rewrite history, Prince Harry." Ruth tried again to regain control. "Okay, let us take a step back here. Harry, you were saying about the new program you are launching," she said, her voice a little shaky. but Denise would not let it go. "No, Ruth, I am not finished," she said, holding up her hand. She looked directly at Harry. "You know what really bothers me? You sit here and play the victim. You act like you have had such a hard life, but you have had every advantage. You have had every privilege, and you threw it all away. And for what? For attention?" The studio was tense. The cameras were rolling. The audience did not know where to look. Some people had their hands over their mouths in shock. Others were leaning forward in their seats, unable to look away from the drama unfolding before them. This was live television at its most unpredictable. This was the kind of moment that would be replayed for years to come. And everyone in that room knew it. Colleen Nolan finally spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "Denise, I really think we need to move on from this. This is not productive. This is not fair to anyone." Denise turned to Colleen, her eyes flashing with indignation. "Why? Because he is a prince? Because we are supposed to bow down and not ask him the tough questions? Is that what you are saying, Colleen? That we should just let him sit here and spout his talking points without any pushback?" "No," Colleen replied, shaking her head. "That is not what I am saying at all. There is a difference between asking tough questions and being cruel. There is a difference between holding someone accountable and attacking them personally. And right now, Denise, you are doing the latter. He is a guest on our show, and we invited him here to talk about something important. Something that could help people. This is not fair to him, and it is not fair to the people watching at home who wanted to hear about mental health." The audience murmured in agreement. You could feel the tide turning in the room. What had started as ambiguous, with some people perhaps agreeing with Denise's confrontational approach, had now shifted completely. The audience was firmly on Harry's side. They could see that this was not journalism. This was not accountability. This was just meanness for the sake of it. Harry looked at Colleen and gave her a small nod of appreciation. Then he turned back to Denise. "I came here in good faith," he said, his voice calm, but you could hear the emotion underneath. "I came here to talk about an issue that I care deeply about, an issue that has affected me personally and affects so many others. But instead of having a conversation, you have chosen to attack me." Denise rolled her eyes. "Attack you? I am asking you questions. If you cannot handle questions, maybe you should not be doing interviews. There is a difference between asking questions and being disrespectful," Harry said, his voice rising slightly. "You are not asking questions. You are making accusations. You are putting words in my mouth. You are twisting things to fit your narrative." "My narrative?" Denise shot back. "This is not about my narrative. This is about you being held accountable." Harry shook his head. "Accountable for what, exactly? For trying to protect my family? For speaking my truth? For standing up for what I believe in?" Denise leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms again. "Your truth," she said mockingly. "That is convenient, is it not? Your truth. What about everyone else's truth? What about the truth of the people you hurt?" Janet Street Porter spoke up again, louder this time. "Denise, this has gone too far. We need to stop this now." Denise looked at Janet with annoyance. "Oh, come on, Janet. Do not tell me you are buying into this." "I am not buying into anything," Janet replied. "I just think we should treat our guests with respect. That is all." Denise laughed bitterly. "Respect? He does not deserve respect. Not after what he has done." The tension in the room escalated further. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some people whispered to each other. Others just watched in disbelief, unable to believe what they were witnessing unfold live on television. That was the final straw. Harry stood up. The entire panel froze. The audience went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop in that studio. Harry's chest rose and fell as he took a deep breath, collecting himself before speaking. "I have tried to be respectful," Harry said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I have tried to stay calm. I have tried to keep this conversation focused on what matters. But you, Denise, have made it clear that you are not interested in having a real conversation. You are interested in tearing me down. You are interested in making me look bad. And I will not sit here and be disrespected like this. The cameras zoomed in closer. The producers behind the scenes were frantically trying to decide what to do. Cut to commercial. Let it play out. This was unprecedented. This was live television at its most raw and unpredictable. Ruth Langsford looked panicked. Harry, please sit down. We can, she started, but Harry shook his head. No, Ruth, he said. I appreciate you trying to mediate, but this is not okay. I came here to do something positive. I came here to talk about helping people. And instead, I have been ambushed. I have been attacked for trying to do the right thing. Denise stood up as well, her face red with anger. Ambushed? You are calling this an ambush? You are so entitled. You are so used to everyone bowing down to you that the moment someone challenges you, you cannot handle it. You cannot take the heat. Harry looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and sadness. You know what, Denise? I feel sorry for you. I really do. Because you are so consumed by your own bitterness that you cannot see past it. You cannot see that I am trying to do something good. You cannot see that there are real people out there who need help. All you can see is your own anger. All you can see is your own agenda. Denise's eyes flashed. How dare you, she said, her voice shaking with rage. How dare you sit there and act like you are better than me? How dare you lecture me about bitterness when you are the one who abandoned your family? I did not abandon anyone, Harry said, his voice rising for the first time. I protected my family. I protected my wife. I protected my children. That is what a good husband does. That is what a good father does. And if you cannot understand that, then I genuinely feel sorry for you. The audience gasped at the direct confrontation. This was no longer a polite disagreement. This was a full-blown argument, happening right there on live television, and neither side was backing down. I am not acting like I am better than anyone, Harry continued, his voice now forceful and clear. But I will not let you talk to me like this. I will not let you belittle the work that I am doing. I will not let you use this platform to spread your negativity and your hatred, because that is what this is. This is not journalism. This is not asking tough questions. This is just cruelty. Denise pointed her finger at him. Cruelty? You want to talk about cruelty? What about the cruelty you showed your own family? What about the pain you caused them? What about... But Harry cut her off. Stop. Just stop. You do not know what you are talking about. You do not know what happened behind closed doors. You do not know the full story. And yet you sit here and judge me as if you do. You sit here and condemn me as if you have all the facts. But you do not. You only know what you read in the tabloids. And I am not going to stand here and defend myself against tabloid lies. The producers were now scrambling. You could see people running around behind the cameras. Someone was trying to signal to Ruth to cut to a commercial break, but Ruth was frozen, unsure of what to do. Colleen Nolan stood up and walked over to Harry. Harry, I am so sorry about this, she said softly. This is not how we normally do things here. This is not who we are. Harry gave her a grateful look, his eyes softening for just a moment. I know, Colleen. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that you tried to stop this. I know that you wanted to have a real conversation. But some people, he glanced at Denise, are not interested in conversations. They are only interested in conflict. Denise, however, was not done. She stepped forward, closer to Harry, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Oh, here we go, she said sarcastically. Everyone rushing to protect poor Prince Harry. Everyone making excuses for him. God forbid he has to face any real scrutiny. God forbid someone asks him the questions that everyone wants answered. Harry turned to her one last time, his expression now completely serious. His jaw was set. His eyes were focused. This is not about scrutiny, Denise. This is about basic human decency, something you clearly know nothing about. I came here to talk about mental health, about helping people who are struggling, about making a difference in people's lives, and you have turned it into a circus. You have turned it into an attack, and I will not be part of it. A circus? Denise scoffed. You are the one making it a circus by walking off. You are the one who cannot handle being questioned. You are the one. Enough! Ruth shouted, standing up abruptly. The entire studio fell silent. Everyone turned to look at Ruth, who was visibly shaking with emotion. Denise, that's enough. This has gone on long enough. You have said your piece. Now, let him leave with dignity. Denise looked at Ruth, shocked by the outburst. Ruth, No, Ruth interrupted, her voice firm. No more. You have done enough. We invited this man onto our show to talk about something important, and you have made it all about your own agenda. You have embarrassed us. You have embarrassed yourself. And most importantly, you have disrespected our guest. I am ashamed. The audience erupted into applause. People stood up, clapping for Ruth, clapping for Harry. The energy in the room had completely shifted. What had started as Denise's show had become her downfall. The very people she thought would support her questioning had turned against her, and with that, he began to walk off the set. The audience erupted. Some people were clapping, supporting Harry. Others were gasping in shock. The panel sat there in stunned silence. Well, except for Denise, who was still standing, her arms crossed, looking defiant. But you could see it now. You could see the cracks in her armor. She had not expected this. She had not expected to be called out by her own colleagues. She had not expected to lose the room. But before Harry could leave the stage completely, a producer rushed over and stopped him. They exchanged a few words. The producer's hands were gesturing frantically, clearly pleading. Harry shook his head slowly, but firmly. The producer looked desperate, their eyes wide with panic. Please, you could see the mouth. Just a few more minutes. But Harry was firm. His mind was made up. He had made his decision, and nothing was going to change it now. Ruth finally found her voice again. Harry, please, she called out, her voice breaking with emotion. We can work this out. Please do not leave like this. Harry paused and looked back at her. His expression softened. Ruth, I have enormous respect for you and for this show. You have always been fair to me. You have always treated me with kindness. But I cannot stay here and be treated like this. I cannot sit on that sofa and allow someone to attack me without provocation. I hope you understand. This is not about you. This is about maintaining my dignity and my self-respect. Ruth nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. You could see the pain on her face, the embarrassment, the regret. I do understand, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I am so sorry. This should never have happened. Denise, meanwhile, had sat back down, but was still fuming. Her face was flushed. Her hands were clenched into fists. She muttered under her breath, loud enough for the microphones to catch. Good riddance. We do not need him here anyway. Colleen heard her and spun around, her face a mask of anger and disappointment. Denise, that is enough, she said sharply, her voice cutting through the tension. You have done enough damage. Just stop talking. Please, just stop. Denise glared at her, but for once she stayed silent. She crossed her arms tighter and looked away, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Denise glared at her. Oh, so now you are turning on me too? I am not turning on you, Colleen replied. I am just saying that what you did was wrong. He came here to talk about something important, and you made it about your personal feelings. Janet Street Porter nodded in agreement. Colleen is right. That was completely uncalled for. Denise looked around at her fellow panelists, realizing that she had lost their support. You are all being ridiculous, she said defensively. I was just asking the questions that everyone at home is thinking. No, Denise, Ruth said, finally finding her strength. You were not asking questions. You were attacking him. There is a difference. Meanwhile, Harry had reached the edge of the stage. The producer was still trying to convince him to stay, but Harry gently pushed past him and walked off into the wings. The cameras followed him until he disappeared from view. Back on the set, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Ruth turned to the camera, clearly shaken. We need to take a quick break, she said, her voice trembling. We will be right back. The screen cut to black and then to a commercial, but behind the scenes, chaos had erupted. Producers were yelling, the panel was arguing, and somewhere in the back, Prince Harry was being escorted out of the building. When the show came back from the commercial break, Harry was gone. The sofa where he had been sitting looked empty, cold, a physical reminder of what had just happened. Ruth addressed the audience with a heavy heart, her voice thick with emotion. As you can see, Prince Harry has left the show, she said, and I want to apologize to him and to all of you watching at home. What you just witnessed should not have happened. We invited Prince Harry here to discuss his important work with mental health charities. Work that is genuinely helping people. Work that is saving lives. And instead of giving him the platform to share that message, we allowed the conversation to become something else entirely. And for that, I am truly sorry. Denise sat there silently, her arms still crossed tightly across her chest, her face set in a stubborn expression. She refused to apologize. She refused to acknowledge that she had done anything wrong. In her mind, she had simply asked the questions that needed to be asked. She had held him accountable. But everyone else in that room knew the truth. This had not been about accountability. This had been about ego. About a host who wanted to make a name for herself by taking down a royal. And it had backfired spectacularly. Colleen looked at her with disappointment etched across her face. Janet shook her head slowly, unable to hide her disgust. The audience was divided. Some were angry at Denise for her behavior. A smaller number were angry at Harry for leaving, though they seemed to be in the minority. But most were just shocked by what they had witnessed. Shocked that something like this could happen on live television. Shocked that a host could be so openly hostile to a guest who had come in good faith. Ruth tried to move the show forward, but the energy was gone. Completely drained from the room. The remaining segments felt hollow and forced. When they tried to discuss the next topic, their hearts were not in it. The panelists barely spoke to each other. They gave short, clipped answers. There was no banter, no warmth. Just four women sitting on a sofa, trying to get through the rest of the show and pretend that everything was normal. But nothing was normal. Not anymore. And Denise, despite her defiant exterior, looked uncomfortable. She shifted in her seat constantly. She would not make eye contact with the camera. She barely contributed to the remaining discussions. And when she did speak, her voice lacked its usual confidence. She knew she had crossed a line. She knew she had gone too far. But she was too proud to admit it. Too proud to say the words that everyone wanted to hear. I am sorry. As the show drew to a close, Ruth made one final statement. Her hands were clasped together in front of her, her knuckles white from gripping so tightly. I just want to say again that we are sorry for what happened today. Prince Harry came here with the best intentions. He came here to talk about mental health, about helping people who are struggling, about making a real difference in the world. And we let him down. We let all of you down. As a show, we pride ourselves on having respectful conversations, even when we disagree. And today, we failed to live up to that standard. And for that, I am truly, deeply sorry." The camera panned to the other panelists. Colleen nodded in agreement. Janet did the same. But Denise just stared straight ahead, saying nothing. And that was how it ended. Not with resolution, not with understanding, but with a prince walking off a talk show because a host refused to show him even a shred of respect. Denise Welch had come into that interview with an agenda. She had come in ready to attack, and in the end, she got exactly what she wanted. A confrontation, a spectacle, a moment that would be talked about for years to come. But at what cost? Prince Harry had come to talk about mental health. He had come to share his passion for helping others. He had come to make a difference. And instead, he was forced to defend himself against baseless accusations and personal attacks. He had tried to stay calm through it all. He had tried multiple times to redirect the conversation back to the important issues. He had tried to be the bigger person, to rise above the negativity, but there is only so much a person can take. There is only so much disrespect someone can endure before they have to stand up for themselves. When Denise refused to back down, when she continued to push and prod and insult, when she made it clear that she had no interest in a real conversation, Harry made the only choice he could. He walked away. Not because he was weak, not because he could not handle the tough questions, not because he was running from accountability, but because he knew his worth. He knew that he deserved better than to be treated like a punching bag on national television. And he was not going to let anyone, not even a talk show host with a platform and an audience, make him feel small or diminish the important work he was trying to do. As Harry left the building that day, he held his head high. He had nothing to be ashamed of. He had conducted himself with dignity and grace under incredibly difficult circumstances. He had shown restraint when most people would have lost their temper. And he had stood up for himself when it mattered most. Denise, on the other hand, had revealed her true colors. She had shown the world that she was more interested in creating drama than in having meaningful conversations. So she had shown that she was more interested in tearing people down than in building them up. And she had shown that when given the opportunity to interview someone who was genuinely trying to make a positive impact, she would rather use that platform to air her own grievances. The other panelists had tried to intervene. Ruth, Colleen, and Janet had all attempted to steer the conversation back on track. They had all recognized that what was happening was wrong. But Denise had been relentless. She had refused to listen. She had refused to back down. And in doing so, she had not only disrespected a guest, but she had also disrespected her colleagues and her audience. The confrontation had started with a simple comment. Just 27 seconds into the interview, Denise had made it clear that this was not going to be a friendly chat. She had come prepared to attack. And from that moment on, the tone was set. Every question she asked was laced with hostility. Every statement she made was designed to provoke. When Harry tried to defend himself, she accused him of being entitled. When he tried to redirect the conversation, she accused him of avoiding accountability. There was no winning with her. She had already made up her mind about who he was and what he represented, and nothing he said or did was going to change that. So when you think back on that day, remember this. Remember that Denise Welch started a fight that she thought she could win, but she did not count on one thing. She did not count on the fact that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not to fight back, but to walk away. And that is exactly what Prince Harry did. He walked away from the hostility. He walked away from the negativity. And he walked away knowing that he had done nothing wrong.